agenda.
I like that. The power of prevention, strong, healthy, strong future. Dr. Mondays. Really cool.
Okay, so good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So nice to see everybody. What a beginning. After the challenges, here we are. Technology was technology tonight. But thank God, there's always a way out. We always beat it. So we're here. I am Dr. Toyin Okwesomi. I'm a family practitioner, HIV specialist, and I treat addictions in Maryland. I have a passion for just discussing medical facts and disseminating, congent, correct information, empowering us as a people so that we can grow strong and have a strong future. We have been talking about mental health, specifically depression, suicide, racial disparities. And we've gone from one subject to the other, discussing things that are pertinent to us as a people, as a race, things that impact us that we don't usually like to talk about. We have had a strong panel led by Dr. Nelson Aluya and strengthened by Pastor Attorney Onigbinde, Dr. Veronica Ufoegbune, Pastor Dr. Fawole, and Professor Baba. We've had amazing discussions, and this is our 12th session. We will be discussing tonight a subject that I'm sure a lot of people looked at and will say, what on earth is that? We will discuss this 12th topic in this segment and hang on the baton for now. We will revert back to mental health in the near future, but we will go to other topics starting next week. Tonight, we'll be talking about Dr. Aluya. I'm going to pass the baton on to you to introduce yourself and introduce our topic for tonight.
Well, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Dr. O, thank you for this platform. And thank you for doing this come rain, come shine, like they always say. And you didn't add to say that you're streaming live from Nigeria. So and that's the determination and the zeal that you use in taking care of your business. And that's what technology has been able to do for us. You can be anywhere to do what you need to do. And at this stage, you can work from anywhere, show up from anywhere, but that's what technology has answered for us. And that has come out of the essence of the power of technology. And, I once wrote that technology has made it possible for us to live in the future by reevaluating and documenting our past adequately, because that's the only way we can live in the future. And all that technology that made this possible, that you and I will see each other right now, is the satellites. Satellites that are roaming our Earth. And what does that mean? And I asked one question once before we go into the details and nitty-gritty about everything. Because again, they say power is information and information is power. And what you do with that information is what the essence of it all. I recently found out that we have 12,800 and something satellites, meaning man-made satellites in space, about 12,000 of them. And that's why people were concerned, and they were saying that the skies that we see will no longer be the skies that we used to, that we grew up looking at. And our children, who knows what that means? And what would it, how would it affect, the children that are coming? Elon Musk was saying, that because of the global warming and all that, they're going to put some satellites that will reflect away the sun from Earth and all that and all that. Well, that's a different story. But if you break it down, America has the highest number of satellites in space, about 4,400 and something. And the next country that's following is China, 499, and then others. The question is, where do the black man stack up in all of this? I mean, the beautiful thing is the black race is the most ubiquitous of every human being on earth. Like I had said earlier on, everybody on earth has a black gene, period. Whether you're Chinese, Indian, Arab, wherever, you have a black gene. But those of African ancestry don't have other genes that qualify other races. And that's what makes us unique. And of course, coming from Africa and all the stories that we've had and all the things that we have had to deal with. Now, as we advance ourselves together and in everything that we do, from our food, our music and arts and culture, and down to the health that concerns each and every one of us and all the things we've talked about. I've said it before, that it's okay to be civilized, but you don't have to be westernized. And it's one thing, if there's anything else we need to take out of it, because it gives you a sense of purpose, gives you a sense of identity, gives you a sense of significance and the role you will need to play in this global space. Because one of the leading factors for any race to dominate is your ability to contribute on an international global space. And that comes from education, it comes from your financial structure, it comes from all the things which we've talked about in the last 12 weeks. And for us to, as a race, continue to play a significant role where we're no longer oppressed, suppressed, or subjugated, we must understand that, and I've said it before as well, technology was used to subjugate and colonize Africa. Technology, again, will be used to liberate Africa and advance our cause. So the black man has to, one, learn technology, two, understand technology, three, utilize technology, four, adapt technology. And that's what we're doing right now. And that's why from California to those who are in the UK to you in Nigeria, we're able to do this. Technology does not belong to the white man, and it doesn't belong to other race. It's a human factor, period. And it's one of the most disheartening things to see that a race, a significant portion, a 1.3 billion single portion of the human race was subjugated and not allowed to contribute their own factor to human growth and development. It's a big shame on the human race. But thank God we begin to understand that. And understanding that our role, and again, like power, is never given. Power is taken. So we will internally restructure, find the differences amongst us, settle our issues, those in continental Africa and those who are in the diaspora, and then begin to strategize on how best we can eventually go on to meet others who have not really wanted us to be here or are afraid of what we are capable of. It's inevitable. The growth and development of the black man is inevitable. It's here. And everybody in the rest of the world will have to learn to embrace it, period. So...
And, Dr. Aluya, if I may say, you're right. because we were just talking about that. Our topic tonight, food, music, arts, as it relates to Black culture and Black health. We were talking about, for instance, fashion, which is, part of arts. That, they call see the Nigerian fashion. See what I'm wearing is now international, is global. Music also. I was at the airport in Costa Rica and they were playing Nigerian music. So as it relates to us, I'm excited about our topic tonight and how we're going to tie all of this together.
Right. So again, like I said, it's no longer the enculturization that was done to the Black race. We are now exporting our form of culture. And we see it, like you said, in our music, in the food that we eat, in the arts that we display, and of course, in our health and our contribution to health for all of humanity. So, and that's the beauty of what we're talking today. And I must say, thank you, Dr. O, for this platform. There's no other place. I've been on a lot of platforms. I've done a lot of speaking engagements, health-wise and otherwise, politics and all that. I have not seen a platform where the issues of a Black race has been picked on for 12 straight weeks, discussed in details with different perspectives from religion, from social, from health-wise, and the political and economic portions of it. Never been done. So, Dr. O, I give you a big clap, a big round of applause, and I doff my hat for you. Providence will remember you well.
Glory, and it's you too.
Providence will remember you well. You have done it, and it will be put in history. And so that as we become our children's ancestors, they'll look back because you set a thread and a pathway that they'll look back on and say, you know what, this is the how best way we need to answer some of this, because we basically answered almost every question that has to do with the Black man.
But we did it together. And
yes, and to everybody who've been there, from Tinu to Mr. Craig, to Dr. Veronica, to Professor Baba, everybody, you guys are all hugely amazing. And you've been part of the history that we've created here. It may sound small and just a few of us, but we've created ripples that will go on to spread around the globe. So as a people, we have our food. And I discussed one time that, the food that's imbibed in our DNA is what we're used to. But being that we're the most ubiquitous group of people on earth, our food varies. And as we move on, we're sharing that culture as well. Some of the biggest restaurant that was opened here in New Jersey, that's African, one of the biggest in the Swahili village. I mean, everybody's trooping there and everybody's going to eat. And that's what we're spotting again. Look at our music. Everybody's adopting the music. Before, it was one thing that people didn't want to listen to. Even Nigerians didn't want to listen to them. But you hear Beyonce, Drake, and all that collaborating with all these, Nigerian artists and remixing those songs. It becomes acceptable, and they're played on our radio every day now. And it gives a sense of identity, not just for Nigerians or Africans or everybody back home, but to our brothers and sisters who left home 500 years ago, who had no point of reference as well, or something to hold on to. But now we all have something and a reference to hold on to together. The dichotomy that has been put there for over 500 years ago to cut the gap and create that hiatus between us and them, we're reconnecting, and we're doing it through food, we're doing it through music, we're doing it through arts, and the politics that are involved in it. But how does this affect our health? And that's some of the things that we've talked about all through as well, because some of the diseases that we begin to being exposed to in foreign lands and at those who moved, remember, like I jokingly said, and which is a fact, that the white race or everybody else left Africa 35 to 50,000 years ago. So they've been here, they've adapted, and their DNA configuration has changed to a point where they're able to adjust to where we only came 500 years ago. So we're going through the process. And that's why when we're exposed to diseases that's foreign to our DNA, we fare worse. Diabetes, atrial fibrillation, vasculitis, vasculitis. I mean, back in the days, even while I came here 20 years ago, sarcoidosis was not an issue with the Black man. It was a Scandinavian disease. But we begin to see it first in Black women, and then we begin to see in Black men. We never saw anything like that in Black men. But now we're seeing in Black men and women. And unfortunately, when we have that, it's far worse. The speed at which it deteriorates is far worse. Lupus was not that common in Black men because we weren't. But we're seeing all of those things now. And it's the rate at which it deteriorates in our system is so much worse. Kidney disease. The rate at which when we develop diabetes or high blood pressure and everything else, the rate at which the kidney deteriorates for those is so far worse. And that's why, and I'll tell you this, if each and every one of you, when next you get your results, take a look at it. They're trying to change it now, but take a look at it. It gives you two values. One, African-American, the other non-African-American. If you look at the GFR, which is the glomerular filtration rate, the rate at which the kidney filters, your blood, it's always fast, it's always higher for the Black man. And unfortunately, falsely, initially when the whole report came, falsely we assume that, it therefore means the Black man's disease is better, our kidney is better because our numbers are usually higher. But we begin to think back and sit back, say, you know what? Even if it looks higher, but it's a false sense of comfort. And that's why those who take care of the Black man say, you're fine. Your kidney's function is much higher. But if you look at the rate at which it deteriorates, it's so much faster than any other person. So that's why they begin to look back now and say, you know what, probably we shouldn't, give those values again because we're faring worse than anything else. So as we have gone through all the things that we've talked about and all the people who've listened within the last 12 weeks, I hope we are a whole lot more confident now in who we are, what we are, and what we offer to the rest of the world. That we're here, we'll begin to get dominant, and we're playing a huge role. And there's ain't nothing anybody will do about it. And I say thank you and God bless.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aluya. Much appreciated. Dr. Veronica, Dr. V, you have the floor. You are muted.
Oh, okay. Dr. O,
there you go.
Good afternoon, Dr. O, and every awesome person on this platform. I don't want to waste the language, but I have to repeat Dr. Aluya to say you are simply innovative and amazing, because this is thinking outside the box to create this opportunity. And Dr. Aluya, as usual, I love it when you open because you set the tone. Thank you. And this is really intriguing. I'm sure if everyone feels the same way as I feel, we wish we could continue this because it can keep going, right, Dr. O? It really can.
But so, we're coming back. We're coming back to it. We just want to address other issues.
Okay, that's true.
Yes.
Variety is life, right? So that's great. Thank you. So the food, the music. Okay, you can hear me now. Great. Okay. The food, the music, arts, Black culture, and Black health with an amazing panel. Let me just start by saying that, just to put that in your head, rolling down from what Dr. Aluya said, the New York Police Department was using Nigerian music to advertise and promote to hire police officers. Now, if that doesn't tell you where we are going, we are beginning to make impact people have no choice but to recognize that the Black culture, the Black music, the Black food trending, there's jollof rice contests everywhere. There was one man who said, he was a pastor that visited Nigeria, and he said that he swore by jollof rice. He was just lamenting. He says, if you ever go to Africa and you don't eat jollof rice in Lagos, please go back and ask for your jollof rice. So when you begin to hear non-Africans talk about our food, that creates some form of self-esteem. And I think that mental health-wise, self-esteem is going high is a good thing. We begin to feel recognized. We begin to feel validated, because what was happening prior was to be validated. You needed to have your long hair, perm your hair, put on, makeup, the way that the Europeans would do. You have to dress the way the Europeans to feel validated. So mental health-wise, it's a really uplifting feeling that we have gotten to the point that we have upgraded our own culture to the point that people are paying for our culture. And paying for culture is a value that totally validates you as a person. And I can't see anything healthier than that. And there's a juggle between, should we continue to validate ourselves by other people's standard? And so we're going through that bridge where we're starting to recognize that we can set the tone as well. Until you validate yourself and package yourself, people will buy you at the price that you sell you. And are we making progress in that area? I would say yes, we are. I always say that the genie is out of the bottle, cannot be put back. So however much the dominant culture tries to pull us back, they also are recognizing that they need us. We know what we know what others know, but we can't do this without growing together and in unity. It means that all people who are Black and brown have that blood of Black in them. And I want to resort back to Dr. Aluya's science. And so we have to stand together because we are victims of cultures that are not Black. But we have to change, and we are changing ourselves from being victims. We need to be on the offensive, but we can't do it alone. We have to do it together, just like others do it together. There's a difference between Black culture and Black culture. Black culture is the sum total of cultural contributions of the mainstream by the Black subculture. It's a fluid, it's multifaceted, it's often sometimes contradictory. Meanwhile, Black culture is a lifestyle standard made of assumptions that we put together, Black identity, often used by marketers, studio heads, fashion brands that we see. It can be the cool factor, right? We are always cool. So as much as you're disrespected, but to actually feel like you are quote unquote cool, you're trendy, we still resort back to the Black culture. But just so the Black culture doesn't suddenly feel like they're better, they still have to downtrodden the Black culture. So that's the struggle we must continue to struggle together every day. It's what people assume about Black people and how they should sound, live, act, to the point that it's a struggle for Africans now to keep their language, which is really unhealthy. You go to Lagos and all the children are speaking some form of English. And the parents proudly say, mommy also Yoruba. My child does not speak Yoruba. Or you go to Delta and they say, oh, my child does not speak Anyama language. It's really unhealthy for us because part of everything that you are is part of your self-esteem and your mental health. So disrespecting yourself is saying, I don't think my language is valid for me to speak it in other people's spaces. I have to say, let's just look at our neighbors, the Spanish people, the Chinese. They will speak Chinese before they speak English. I don't speak English. I don't speak English. And that's what they all say. It's a good thing that we speak English, but we must validate the importance of our self-esteem, of our self-identity, our culture, and our language, and our food, and everything about us. We're not saying throw away everything else. It's always good to have more. Acquire other people's culture, but do not let it replace who you are, because that's connected directly to your mental health, to your self-regulation, to your self-care, to your own self-identity. And so that we must begin to, in our circle, in our community, with our second gen, begin to help them acquire everything about them. How we greet. There's still a lot of cultures you go in and you see the children, they bow and they greet. That's who we are. Look at the Japanese, they would bow anywhere. So let's not be shy about teaching our children our culture. I know that about when we all started having children, there was still a lot of struggle. But as we got older, more research shows that your culture connects directly with your self-identity. So we must help our children to understand and to begin to learn who we are. It's a journey. They would have to do that with their next generation. But how do we do that as parents? When we become grandparents, let's plug ourselves into our children's lives and begin to support them and their child, which is our grandchildren, on who we are, our food. Sing to them, do the lullaby, sing it in your own language. There's so many beautiful lullabies. Then they're hearing your voice, they're learning your movements, and you're setting the third generation ready to succeed. And the second generation is observing. And then let me go into food. Food is intrinsic to African heritage and customs. When you come to somebody's house, they come in and they don't have to worry if you're going to invite them, because you will. They join you. And we are such a very open and welcoming culture that even if it's one okeleba that we have, that we will share with our neighbor. Whether it's fufu, nsima in Ghanaian, atkit, what, calderida, do abrito, and all the other food. The food of the African diaspora has the power to connect people wherever they are. There were times when TikTok showed people lining up around the block to eat jollof rice, fufu, and everything, to showcase the diversity of African cuisine. Millennial tastemakers were revolutionizing culinary platforms and creating spaces. You go to many cities now and you see African restaurants blossoming. In your community, if there's none, begin to identify who that chef is. See if we can support them, because it's in. African food is needed. Nollywood, when I go to get my hair done, my hairdresser is Malian. And what is she watching? She's watching Nollywood movies. And she tells me the name of everybody there. And she knows all the actresses. And she's Malian. And she adores each of those actors and actresses. Nigeria is really leading the world. Nigerian artists are playing with African-American artists in Hollywood. We are trending in a really healthy way in the right direction. We just need to keep working with what's happening at home to make sure that we impact a place of origin positively, because that's the health and wealth that we must invest in. Let's continue to do what we're doing, because something about the diaspora is impacting not just Africa, but the world positively. Let's continue to showcase great health, great wealth, great foods. We are in. Black culture is not proprietary to Black people, by the way. I see there's a similar situation where a white student told a Black student, "I am more Black than you." And he says, "What do you mean you're more Black than me?" He says, "I can do the overreach, I can do the backslide better than you." And he said, and so he's feeling like I'm more Black. And there's one that says, I can eat the kola nuts, I can eat fufu, but you don't even know what that is. So guess what? Everyone's owning our culture, and that's fine, because again, the African culture is always open, very healthy. Let's go back to knowing who our neighbors are. Let's be the caregiver of our our brothers and our sisters. We're not saying don't adopt my independence black white culture. We're saying let's not let it replace who we are. Like in our culture, they used to say, don't forget whose child you are. My parents would say that to us all the time. Black culture is a starting point. Culture of any kind can be grounding, comforting, create a home for nourishment. But a certain point, a cultural identity too tightly defined keeps us from growing. So let's open it up. Let's allow some in, but let's not forget the child of who we are. So I can go on, but Dr. Old, I would doff my hat here and say thank you again. I've enjoyed being a part of this, but I love the fact that Black culture is a starting point. Black culture is in, it's always been in. Black is definitely beautiful. Embrace it is simply beautiful. Look in the mirror. What do you see? A precious person. There's none other than you. God created you in his own image. I am taken, so stay on your lane. So I always say that to people. Don't forget that you're special and there's no other image like you. I don't care how much identical twins you are just different and nobody should take your place. You're taken. You're special, you're beautiful. And then I will go to the worry one. Now who they reign? Nah, Niger, they reign. The Black is reigning. I love you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Oh, wow. That was beautiful. Look, I like the hair thing you brought in. Do you know that our young men now tell girls they want their natural hair?
Everybody. Dr.
Everybody.
not in a chemical anymore for their hair. I don't know of any single person.
I don't know any.
Yeah.
I don't.
No.
There was a time we were all plumbing our ears, doing the jerry curls and all of that.
No more. No more. Wow. Love it. Love you, Dr. O. I love it. I have my African outfit. My students love it on campus. And we're so proud. African outfit is actually in Macy's everywhere now. On the walkway in Hollywood. It is incredible. Let's keep the path going. We're on the right path.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Every time I wear African outfit to work, my patients comment all day long. I have the white coat on it, but they can see it.
Thank you.
And when it doesn't matter who gives you that comment, it makes you feel better.
Hello.
And when you feel better, it's healthy. It's a healthy thing. So it all ties in there. Then the Nollywood. Thank you for bringing that up also. I happen to know one of our NAPAC members has offered us free tickets to a live Nollywood show on July 1st and 2nd in Maryland. Woo! So if you're interested, I have free tickets for you. Send me your email.
Wow.
Send me your email in the chat box. You can private chat or put it out there, whatever you're comfortable with, and I'll make sure you get the link to get your own free ticket. Oh. So live show is the first one of its kind that is going to happen, and it's starting in Maryland. Isn't that cool?
It's fun.
So NAPAC, through NAPAC, you're going to get this, and you would also have the opportunity to interact with Mr. Gbenga Ogunjimi of the new Nigerian Center in DC. So with that being said, thank you so very much, Dr. V. We appreciate you. We love you. I love you. Thank you.
Love you more. Thank you.
So I'm going to call on Pastor Attorney Onigbinde. Kindly give us your insight.
Well, good evening, Dr. Ho. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I think we all can say that this has been a journey in providence. We find ourselves injected into some of those things in our life that you never planned, you never It's not something that you line up. And but along the journey of life is things that crop up, things that you find yourself in the midst of, things that you don't plan, that makes you to realize that indeed there's an important and significant element of providence in our lives. I remember the day that, I mean, I've known Dr. O for a while in a different context from this, and I didn't have any clue that something like this was going on. But for her to call me to tell me, okay, this is going on, and it's relayed in my heart that you're going to be participating. Can you? And what I found myself doing is, what I found myself in, I'm in the midst of people who, in the last 12 weeks or so, have really given me another level of education, another level of insight. Just opening your eyes to, it's just finding yourself in like Alice in Wonderland, and just being amazing. The kind of information on this platform, and while we want to give credit to Dr. O, quickly want to give glory to God, and that's the way it's supposed to be. But we have to give credit to everyone that credit is due, and so that's why we really have to say that Dr. O, indeed, that we appreciate that he can put all of this together. I was talking to her yesterday, and I said, well, one of the amazing things that I have found is that, you have these 2 pages of Zoom, and you don't even know who is here until you go to the next page. And that's when you now realize, oh, my friend is here. Someone is listening to me. And so all of that to say that it speaks to, I believe it speaks to your character. Without really wanting to put any chips on your shoulder, it speaks to your character to get all these amazing people together. Because I know that for you to invite people from all over, just in America alone, people are so busy and they have one thing or the other that will make them not to come. But I believe not only your character, but also the fact that when they show up, they find that this is not a waste of time, that people can learn. And that's why they come. They came and they keep coming back. And I would say that is true of me, because after a long day, I just want to, raise up my feet and rest a little bit. And we all are very, very busy people. And it all speaks to the fact that we know there's value in this. That's where we show up. Now, to everything else that have been said in the last 12 weeks, and I think I missed one episode of it, and also what have been said tonight, particularly now that we having all of this culminating in culture, talking about who we are as a people. We make sure that charity begins at home. We make sure that we don't just take a charity to the outside world when we know that there's no charity at home. And so I think it's really key that we, pay attention to who we are as a people, pay attention to our culture, pay attention to our custom, all of the elements of culture about, the food and the clothes and, other things that we have been talking about in a few moments, are things that speak about, who we are as a people. But I also want to say that these are not peculiar to us. I mean, if I wear buba and sokoto, because I'm a Nigerian Yoruba man, and I find a Ghanaian who said, I want to wear kente, or I find someone else who wants to, maybe an Irishman or a Scottish man, and they wear something that you will probably say, oh, what? I mean, a woman in our own culture wear that. So what are you doing? Well, that's his own culture. And so, in other words, when we think about culture, we think about the specificity of culture, and we realize there's a peculiarity of culture. And while we actually make sure that we know our lane concerning culture, there is something that also transcends culture, something that we need to inculcate into culture. It doesn't make us specifically Irish or, or Nigerian or American. Something that after people have seen your clothes and they have seen your food and they have seen, your manner of, your language, which is also an element of culture. Now they see, okay, now I've seen that. I went to Nicaragua, I saw a little bit of that. They have, they wear colors too, and they wear this and that. But, what is it that, makes you really, really stand out? Particularly when we're talking about, a polity, maybe it's a word polity, people from all over the, and I think there's something about, in my mind, the values, that we need to pay attention to, that we need to also inculcate into who we are as a people. One thing that we can't deny is, the things that are good and beautiful about our culture as a people. And there are things that we also need to realize are not. I think we have to be honest about honing who we are, not, looking down on ourselves, not, thinking that we are inferior to anyone. But we also need to understand there are things that we, even when we know this is part of our culture, whatever it is, we know that these are not values that, we want to pass on. Because there are some of those things that even as a people, they are not making us to be forward-looking as we should with all of the potentials. And paying attention to that may make us to, may make a difference between, how we, apply the things that we have that are good, and how that we can then make a good, all the kind of progress that we, that we expect as a people, because, we can, blame all of the things that have happened to us in the history of who we are as a people. There will be a point when it becomes like a broken record. Okay, now you have talked about, your history. You have talked about how, they dealt this, they dealt you a contrary hand. Now that you know what you know, now that you understand where you come from, now, what are you going to do? If you find yourself in a hole, because somebody dug a hole and put you in it, and then they begin to, somebody said they dig a hole, put you in a hole, and they begin to throw mud at you in the hole in order to bury you. All you do is just catch the mud and then put it down and then make it to become like something that makes you to, instead of burying you, that you make it to be like a platform that you stand upon, and it makes you to rise up and rise up. They think what they are throwing at you is going to bury you. But now it becomes something that you're stepping upon, as they throw the mud, you set it down. So in other words, we really need to understand, the values. And I can tell you some of the things that I've seen in our culture that I believe, some of the values that we need to eschew and not imbibe. Things about respect are good, but there are other things that, we need to understand is actually making us to not make the progress that we need to make. And if you say, well, tell us one, I would say our individuality, maybe you say, well, that's not really something peculiar, but, if there are some things that we have that we can't afford to, have, even when it is elsewhere. Maybe individuality and lack of unity will not quickly show up in making other culture to be backward because of the progress that they already made. They have gone ahead of us. For us, there are some of those things that will quickly show. It will show as a matter of effect and as a matter of affect. We really need to understand that more than any time in the history of the people that we are, that we need to band it together. That we need to put on the table, like this kind of thing that we're doing now. We find people, culture that pull people up. Somebody was talking about Chinese. I think it was Dr. Ufoegbune. How they want to speak their language, they don't speak English. Well, one of the things that I've always seen, with Chinese or Koreans, is that when they start something, they're ready to show the know-how. They're in dry cleaners business. They start with their own business, and not only are they coming there as a family, there are other people that are ready. If you go to HMAT, somewhere in Ellicott City. And I saw HMAT also. I was on my way to New Hampshire to see my sons-in-law. And I saw another HMAT. And I said, oh, this HMAT is here too, outside of New York, almost in Connecticut. These people are, they establish all these businesses and it doesn't die. And you wonder why. And it's not because they know more than we do. But if when you meet an average African who has something and they just want to keep it to themselves and they just don't want you to know because they want to be rich quick and they don't want to spread it, that is a problem that, when you identify that in a culture, you'll see pockets of successful people, but you won't see a whole culture of people moving forward. I mean, that is in my own mind and as a person that I've identified. I mean, so when I see someone like Dr. O, and I'm not trying to put chips on his shoulder, who said, you know what, you are a Nigerian, come, I can help. He's treating people who don't even have insurance. He's trying to help as much as he can. Now, if we have many Dr. Ho's, many Dr. Aluyas, many Dr. Ajagbe's who say, you know what, I can help. I have information about this. So, let's do this. So you want that? Then we can not only just as a pocket of people or as individuals make individual progress, but then and I believe that one of the views that everybody probably will share on this platform is that we want our culture to move forward. We want as a people, not just one of us is from where I came from. They say if you have one rich man among 7, everybody is poor, because the rest 6 people will be badgering him. They want him to help them, and he also will not enjoy his wealth. So it's not just I am rich, and I'm not going to tell everybody else, the other 6 people, how I get here. What do they also have to do so that they can also rise up and they will leave me alone, and then I can enjoy, and everybody else will share this. You will share what you won't just give them handouts, but you share whatever it is that you can share that will also make them to come up and be as much as possible independent. And so then at the end of the day, we as a culture, we as a people, we then be able to see that, there's a widespread, there's a broad progress, just as what we want. Because, I mean, when you look back on, whether you are from Ghana, Ethiopia, Kenya, Nigeria, when you look back, many of us don't even want to go back to our country now because, what is going on? And it speaks to not just, it speaks to the selfishness and the individuality of that culture. Some people believe that, once they can color what is supposed to be spread to everybody else, they'll be fine. Then they become millionaire and then they die and then everything goes down. Whatever they have, whatever they think, whatever it is that they have discovered, it just died with them. That is probably what I have identified as one of the bane of our culture as a people. And, and I believe that people will have something to speak to about this. But thank you so much for bringing me into the midst of amazing people. And I want you to know I have learned so much. I look forward to these every time, and I tell the church, when I'm preaching now, Medical Monday is, if you're in my church, I tell them about Medical Monday. Everybody's like, what is Medical Monday? Pastor, where are you doing? I thought you said you're supposed to be resting. I said, well, this Medical Monday, you got to check it out because it's not just a waste of time. You find something from these amazing people that you can learn. And I hope that I've also been able to contribute a little bit because I can tell you this, I have gained so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so, so much. To God be the glory. Yes, we have gained a lot from you also, and we're so grateful. Thank you. And, Medical Mondays continue, but we're shifting to next week. I'm going to say it now. Dr. Mayowa is going to come on next week. And stay tuned for the topic. Thank you so much, Pastor. I'm going to call on Professor Baba Sangre to give us the social perspective of our food, our culture, our music, arts. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. And again, I will repeat, I don't want to keep repeating, but I think I want to thank Dr. O for this forum. It's been very educational and very, so it's a great forum, actually. I have a lot of conversations and trying to find ways to not only understand ourselves, being in the diaspora, and try to identify some of the issues or the causes of the issues that we have at hand. So thank you so much for the work that you have done to put this together. I want to thank, I don't know whether he's here or not, Dr. Aluya, who pulled me in after working with him with another project, and he invited me. So that was, I mean, so I'm very grateful for his invitation to this forum. Now I look at it, and when we talk about culture, I think everybody has said everything that we need to say. So I will try to be brief. From a social science perspective, when culture, I say it's a way of life. Then I look at Africa, I say we are. I think sometimes it's not a good thing to say, but my observations is that in the next, even though we talk about African culture, we are proud of it, we want to do this, one of the most important aspects of culture, I think for me, is language. And when my observation is that in the next maybe 30 to 50 or less, small African languages may disappear. Reason being that we don't, the children, like I have friends whose children can understand everything they say in the language, but they can't say it back. So then I say, well, that's appear like a lost generation, because if they marry somebody, they most of today we have this interracial, intergroup, interethnic, interreligious, everything marriage. So now, then the ethnic one, then you see why we may be losing our own, the culture that we love as Africans. And so we've been, actually what I always like to say, we've been Euro-culturalized. Africans have been Euro-culturalized. Everything we do actually is, now we are using English, is African. Now, is it something that we could have prevented? No. When you look at Nigeria, it has about 300 languages, 300, so let's say 300 tribes or ethnic group, whatever you want to call it. So it's not the same thing when you look at Germany, because Germany can be easily called a nation because majority of the Germans grew up speaking German language. But in Nigeria, for us to actually enter with one another, we have to come with a common language, which is basically the colonial language that we use. So, and that language becomes an umbrella language for us. So, if I met you as a Yoruba, I'm a Hausa. So, of course, unless you speak Hausa, or if I speak Yoruba, the only way we can communicate is English. And that has gone on. It's growing that way. So I think the generation that are coming today, they don't even want to speak the language. I remember actually long, even in the 70s, when you speak your language, they look at you like a bushman or something like that. So we actually undermine our own language. We accepted the colonial language as the language, as the civilized language. So if you spoke your language, then what are you doing? Actually, even when I came here, when I remember on vacation, and I'm speaking my language because I like to speak my language, not really Hausa per se, but the Zar language. And my friends would say, "Ay, kachika yare." So that means you like to speak your language, your tribal language too much, you know. So they assume because I'm in America, I should be speaking English. And some of us have had that experience. When somebody calls it from home, the first thing they start doing is speaking English to you, even though they're from your tribe. And then when you speak the language, then they go back to speaking English. So when I look at the culture, it's a way of life, but African, can we maintain one of this culture, the language? Can we maintain it in the age of globalization and in the age of technology? Can we maintain our culture? So that's one thing. Two, we look at in terms of food and the food thing. I like to, for me, I look at it more analytical. So today, yes, a lot of people like Nigerian food, African food, and everything food. But also, we are also talking in relation to health. How has there been changes in our health as Africans in the diaspora when we are moving from eating African food? That it is always, most of the time, fish. Some people come from the southern part, fish. We go to the northern part, it's dry things, kuka, and mian kuka, and all those things. So how has the change in the food culture here affected our health? So I think that's some of the question that I always like to ask. And because when you hear today, I think one of the conversation we had was diabetes. But what is causing diabetes? And why is there an increase in diabetes in Africa? We know there's an increase. I think Dr. Aluya gave figures last time. But then we have to sit and say, well, has it, I don't know, can we look at it from the change of food, to the culture of food? We, African, we used to eat a lot of leaves, vegetables, fruit, and everything. Then boom, we have the European culture, biscuits and sugar and all those things. And everybody now gonna try to that, the Coca-Cola and all those sweet things. So we look at that to say, hey, you know what? Those could be the reason why we are seeing changes in our health condition as Africans, which is from the food. So the culture, and I think there have been other studies that some of our food are very heavy, may not be very good for people who have diabetes. So some of the things, I don't know whether we look at that also. So the culture is good, but we have to know which one can we maintain and which one can we destroy or push aside. So I think that's what to me, what I kind of look at in all this conversation that we're having is how do we relate all these things that we are doing to, again, the topic of health or anything. Now, Black culture is becoming like somebody said, it's fluid. It's not one thing. When I see came from Columbus last night, almost every young Black person that I see in Columbus was wearing a braid. They have this braid, everybody's wearing a braid. And that's the culture, the trend that's going on today. Now, what does that really mean? For some researchers and some social science, it seems that it could be the feminization of the Black male, because we are not saying it that way, but that somebody said that. I don't know what it makes somebody say it's feminization of Black men. You could put a braid and everything. That's time. So it could be true. Now, the original idea was putting the Rastafarian thing, which was different from the Bob Marley. And then we look at today's one, it's kind of a thin, more everything is kind of in a class of its own. So those are the changes of the culture that I would say. And the sagging issue. So I don't know whether the cultures are good or bad. It depends on who is doing the analysis. But I think there are some of the cultures that the changes may be good, but some of the changes may be bad. Now, if as an immigrant, I encourage students to assimilate, because I say that it's very important to assimilate, especially in terms of language. because we live, I look at English in America as a language of commerce. That means the language that you do everything. You go to school in English, you practice medicine, professor, whatever you do is in English. Now, I know that there's this trend towards bilingualism, and it's a challenge to African. And as a human rights commissioner with the state of Iowa, one of the things I said, this culture is good that we want to talk about inclusivity, but also bad for the Africans who don't speak, speak so many languages. But then they are required, when you apply for a job, they ask you, oh, okay, are you bilingual? You say, I'm multilingual, but then that's not what they want. So that changes in culture can also, some other changes in culture requiring bilingualism. When I look at it in terms of employment, it's affecting the employment opportunity for the Africans here in Iowa. And so you find some of the master's, bachelor's degree, they are not working in the area that they're supposed to work because of some of the requirements. I remember talking to, as a chair, when I was chair of the department, talking to chief of police, when they make that requirement, I have to tell them that, remind them that, look, these people are going to school in English, not in Spanish. So I think maybe they should consider taking that. But it's too late in America, of course. But that's just sharing the dynamic when we are dealing with culture. It's so many things that we can look at and their effects. And those can affect you because if you are not properly employed, or you're underemployed or not employed, it can cause stress, and that stress can lead to some other health issues. So that's why we look at those cultural dynamics in that area. So again, I want to thank everybody, all the panelists that I've interacted with, and again, Dr. Aluya has always presented this open statement very well and started the conversation. Appreciate Dr. Bamidele, the religious aspect. And above all, I want to thank Dr. O for the opportunity to interact with everybody here. Thank you so much. And I look forward to listening to the rest of the conversation. Bye.
Thank you so much, Prof. I'm always eager to hear about the social aspects because there's always so much for me to learn about how we relate in that area. The language you mentioned struck me. It is true that some of our children understand our language but can't speak. Actually, I have a group of young men and women who have now enrolled in our language schools to learn the language because they are interested. We have failed them.
Yes.
We failed them because we did not teach them. I so much appreciate, your perspective because it gives room for change. These things we can change easily. We can help for me, for instance, it's my grandchildren that now I can now sow into and, speak the language to them, even enroll them in Yoruba language school, and, just assist the parents so that, they can learn the language and learn the culture along with it. It's important that we do that, not only because we want to preserve our culture, which we're losing. When you said that, in some years to come, we will lose our culture, that hits like a bullet, especially even back home, where people have the opportunity to speak the language, allow their children to learn, and they don't speak to them. They don't even allow them to speak the language. They speak English with this accent that is, oh my gosh, and yet they have no second language. That is painful. We need to change that through education. Every one of us have a role to play to educate, people back home, to maintain our culture and be proud of it, and to also help young parents understand that when children are exposed to multiple languages at that age, it actually sets them up for success. It's actually a positive thing, increases their IQ. So thank you so very much. There's so much more I can say, but I saw that some hands are raised. And I'm so glad that Dr. Craig's hand is raised because he has so much posted that I want him to handle himself now. So Dr. Craig, go ahead, sir.
Thank you again, Dr. O. Again, I'm learning every time we come together. It is 2 or 3 points. Professor acknowledged diabetes and what we are struggling with per se. I want to bring forward that we do know the catastrophic state of diabetes that we are living in right now. It is a real situation. It is about education. We need to educate ourselves and then teach those who are around us about various things which are in food, which we are consuming every day unknowingly. And yes, it is about education, totally education. Critical because it is now a major business, and I think Dr. Aluya could attest to that. There's something else that was mentioned. Yes, he mentioned in terms of the social context that we are becoming effeminate, but that's because we are also consuming foods and things which are in food, which are disrupting our endocrine system. That is an absolute reality. It is happening now, and they're beginning to market supplements to avert the endocrine disruption, which is causing havoc with, quote, who might be or what they might be or whatever. Dr. O, I'll echo your point in terms of the importance of educating. I've raised 2 children, and both of them, praise God, have come forth with some level of balance and stability, some level. We need to educate our children about our culture, about our language, and also about our God. At the same time, we cannot leave that out. It's got to be part of the process of education. It is absolutely critical that we do it every day, every time we have the opportunity, because this social system that the professor has spoken to, they will wash us away in any way, form, or fashion they can. And yes, the language might fade if we do not on that. Our culture, our eating habit might fade because we do not act upon that. We need to be conscious and conscientious about we bring forth to those, we're elders, to those who are behind us. It is sad to see sometimes, as you pointed out, Africans, Jamaicans, Latino, who have no idea of what their language is and or the history surrounding it. So that education that you spoke to, Dr. O, about teaching young people the language will also, I gather, include the history as well, because it is about the history and who we are. We must go out of our way to make sure we write our own history, not somebody else. Thank you again for this platform. It's been extraordinary, as you can see. That's it for me.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Guess what? In the very, very near future, together, all of us on this platform will put together programs to enact what we're talking about. Like I said, this is a job for all of us. In order to reach our populace, it is all of us that have to do this together.
Yes.
We have our work cut out for us, and we will do it. We'll get it done. Thank you so very much, sir.
Let me add a little bit on the language issue.
Okay.
Studies have showed there are about 7,000 languages on Earth, and there are about 35 of them that go extinct almost every year.
Jeez.
And in Africa, we have almost 5,000 of them, and a lot of them are going away. So the issue of language going extinct is not just an African thing; it's also a global thing. Yeah.
Not saying overnight?
No.
Yeah, but Dr. Aluya,
Yeah,
we want to work against that for us. And we have the time. It starts with education. Knowledge is power. And then providing the resources.
Dr. O, may I add?
Go ahead.
Dr. O, may I add?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
I just wanted to piggyback I want to piggyback on what you said about multiple languages. I think people should just Google and read more. There's those synapses in your brain, especially when your children are 0 to 5. Those synapses are hungry for you to use them. When you use them, you keep them. When you don't, you lose them. And that connects directly to the information that you and Dr. Aluya are discussing now. When we have information such as we are discussing today, and as Dr. Aluya said to us, it goes back to what you said. That's called data. So let's start doing data-informed changes. And this data we're gathering today, we're like, we need to spread the word. We need to be intentional. We need to plan ways. Like I said, we are, for example, the carriers of our culture and our language to our 3rd generation. Our 2nd generation, which is our children, we stumbled in teaching them specifically, not everybody, but I would say huge, our language. Then we realized it, we started teaching it. They would understand us, they wouldn't speak it. But we need to take that further extra step to plan language teaching by community. I have done it in my culture. And then I love what you said, Dr. Craig, about writing your own history. Well, I have to say, that's beginning to happen. For example, the history of my own ancestry, we have historians in my town that have taken it upon themselves to write it. And we're starting to have our children as birthday gifts. I give them the history of our own ancestry. I teach our language, and I teach it pro bono, online. I have a website. I'm aggressively pushing it. Even our king, everybody now in our WhatsApp platform, we use our language to talk and mix it with English. We're promoting. So I don't want to take too much time, but we have to take this as data, consciousness. Therefore, let's use it to fight as much as we can. Yes, we're still going to lose some African language, but pledge to yourself that it won't be your language. And so our 3rd generation, let's make sure we speak that language, because whether we speak English or not to them, they'll speak English with the American accent, which most people are desiring. Don't worry about that. They will. I'm an educator for early education, and I'm talking about this from the basis of research. This is data, this is raw data, proving that all you have, my father did that in Lagos. When we get home, he says, take off your Yoruba language, take off your English language slippers, and speak our language. Therefore, today I can talk proverbs and everything in my language. And luckily, Mrs. Yeku, my Yoruba teacher, made sure we were doing Ewi, everything in Yoruba. So I can do Ewi, I can do proverbs. So if we become intentional, you can teach culture, you can teach belief, you can teach your history, your religion. And you know what? We are ancestors, but the other culture told us that we're evil. We need to reteach that. When you go on, your children should look at you as ancestors. Therefore, our own grandfather, grandparents, our ancestors. Yes, Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior, but don't forget your ancestors. Let's not, anything that says spill blood for me is evil. But anything that says, project your ancestors, it's good. You are going to become an ancestor. You're not a bad person. Therefore, my father is my ancestor, my mother, my grandparents, and so on. So we need to teach our children that our ancestors matter. Because when you leave, you become ancestor for your children, grandchildren, and on. So this is a very rich conversation, but also we're gathering data. Let's use that data. Dr. O, everybody was saying educate. Absolutely. Let's not give up. Our food is great. It's how you prepare it. So we need to re-educate ourselves maybe about the frying. But our food is very rich. Look at the palm oil, used to be condemned. Now they're saying it's a superfood. Look at our avocado. Look at all of our rich vegetables. Somebody, there's a recipe that says if you take the ewuro, which is the, what's it called again in English? The ewuro, it's the
Bitter leaf.
And they said, yes, and they said just soak it in water, a little this and that, and chew it. That one is so super nutrients that will heal you. And heal you. And our people, we used to do all that. We're throwing them away. Let's research and bring back a culture that's healthy. Our food is great. We just need to embrace the healthy one. Let's replace it with Indomie. I don't know what's Indomie, shawarma. Those are foreign to us. Let's bring back, our people at home, we need to tell them how blessed we are with our culture, our foods. Our foods are great, so let's not condemn it. If we're eating too much fufu, maybe make it fufu with yam or with something healthier. We just need to find the best of our culture. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So true, so deep. I have many hands raised. I'm going to leave the comments alone. Sister Tinu, I think you had your hand raised first in this crew. Pastor, I'm going to come back to you. Sister Tinu,
yes,
please unmute. There you go.
Yes, thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm glad to be here. Always glad to be at Medical Monday, sometimes kicking and screaming because it's Monday and you've gone through the excitement of the weekend when you thought you had enough hours or time on your hands, but eventually you find out that before you look up, it's Sunday evening and Monday you are barely making it. Yeah, but hey, I always try to make it when I can. And I thank God for you, Dr. O, and for all our experts, and all you, my people that all of us that listen, we don't present, but we learn so much more from all of you. And I pray that God will continue to bless you and empower you more and increase level of your knowledge and wisdom in Jesus' name. So I've been following what, I don't know what the topic for today is. Maybe I was negligent, not knowing, because I know I received the Zoom meeting and Dr. O, knowing her, she always titles it. So I didn't pay attention to
So the title is Food, Culture, Music, Arts, as it relates to our health.
Okay.
And as it relates to our culture.
Okay. But everything I've been hearing is maybe in few statements have been to that end. But I raised my hands up because I wanted to make one or two comments about what I've heard so far on the social aspect and, of course, the education. So, but let me go back to, I will start with a legally framework mind. And I'm saying that because I wrote that down for myself when I heard Pastor, I think Pastor Onigbinde say something about the fact that he to me, how I heard it, maybe that's not what he was trying to say. He kind of made an allusion to the social aspect of this, our people that we met here or our people whose ancestors have been sold into slavery and are still here. And they are our brothers and sisters, African American. So I wanted to respond to that, and also about the culture of our language, the food and all that. Yeah, we know education is key. But for me, when I first came to the United States, of course, my husband and I, we said we would not be speaking English with our children. We intentionally put it upon ourselves to say, these children will be, I wasn't even pregnant, will be speaking Yoruba language. And that was it. And what did we do? How did we intensify that? Of course, I had Tolu, and then we started speaking Yoruba to her. So, but we were listening to the news, and even our friends, Yoruba friends, they would say that, you will be confusing this girl. She might not be brilliant in school. She will be slow, and my children, both of them, of course, they are 8 years apart. Their first language, which I always remind them, is Yoruba. And we say that we will not understand you if you don't understand us. That's number one. And then to the point that when Tolu came, so we bought all the Rekoni Budo, Abidi, all those Yoruba books. We bought it. And that was what I used every Saturday morning. Before we eat anything, we're still in the room. I take her through the Yoruba alphabets, the counting 1, 2, 3, and all that. So, of course, I'm saying that because I want us to look back legally. When we come to the Americas or the United States, the American culture and the legal framework is for you to be assimilated. And when you are assimilated, assimilation does not take away your culture. It doesn't take away your food. It doesn't take away your mode of dressing, your mindset, and every other thing. But we, especially us Black people, we put it upon ourselves because we are bringing that slavery, we call it in Nigeria, colonization. The mentality, we bring it over with us when we came. And why did I say that? We bring it over to integrate. When you integrate, you dissolve into that culture. So you are buying burger all the time. So you are frying whatever all the time. I did it also, but this is just an awakening, awareness to us and for us. And why did I say that? Because even, I think it was 10 years ago when my nephews and nieces, I would be calling them on phone. You want to talk to them? They're not speaking Yoruba to you. I'm like, you have not even, you've never visited Benin, which is close to Nigeria. And you are speaking like you live in UK or in Britain with the accent, and you're not speaking Yoruba. What's happened with your Yoruba language? So that we need to bring back. It is not the Americans that taught us to not speak our language. It is us that don't want to teach our children. And I say that to say, because I mean, racism is in every different, minute, slight forms. I would say I experienced it in the sense that when I went to Georgetown, my LLM class, fresh off the boat, almost 4 months after I arrived in the country, I didn't want to change the way I speak. I still don't speak phonetics. I just say I'm going to be speaking English accurately and succinctly, so long as you can hear me. So I will speak the English that I know, but I would not try to want to speak like the Americans, the slangs, and no. So that is why even my language, when I speak, I still speak it like I would speak it if I was in Nigeria. So, and I said that to say that we need to now retrain ourselves. This is Dr. Craig talking now. he said that we need to teach ourselves, because the only thing you know is what you can give. You can't give what you don't have. So we retrain ourselves, saying assimilation is what we are here to do. You get hold of your culture. You are not losing it. You are not losing your food. Of course, there are some things that we eat that may not be good for us. But also knowing that we cannot say everything about America is bad, but there, especially when it comes to food, of course, it's high sugar, high this, and I have had my own share of it. I'm a very sweet tooth girl. So I know that, but at one time we come back because everything we do always comes back to haunt us, either for good or for bad. And of course, when you say haunt, it's bad. Now, where the Pastor Onigbinde, why I raised his name is because he was talking about what I heard. Maybe I heard wrong. And I've always had to change our people's mindset. When I say our people, of course, our brothers and sisters here in America, I'm not talking about them, but I'm talking about those of us from the continent of Africa, especially the elites. When they speak, they look down. They don't think, most of our brothers and sisters, African Americans, they don't think that they try to get out of their, wherever they find themselves now. Because probably because of the lack of the education, and I'm saying education, not formal education, but education in terms of research, in terms of learning about the people that you're talking about. And who are these people? Somebody once said, and this is research, you guys are experts in that anyway, so correct me if I'm wrong. Empirically, they said that it takes 4 generations to roll back the wrong that has been done to a generation. So I came over with no debt to this country, judging the people I meet here, saying that, okay, this was done to your ancestor. So now what? It's not that simple, and it's not that easy. So we are talking about systemic form of racism. Let's not be stereotypical. Let's not be judgmental. Yeah, we have places where we can help each other, but it's not that simple. So I think that's all that I have. Of course, let's do evidence-based research and data. God bless us. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your input. Always very well thought through. Thank you, Sister Tinu. God bless you. I'm going to go to Pastor Onigbinde to defend himself in a bit, but before then, I just want to call on Sister Terry. I think, Pastor, you going?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. And thank you for this opportunity. This is my first time being able to participate in Medical Mondays. I've been trying for some time, but I'm glad I'm here tonight. So welcome. I am calling. Thank you. Thank you. So I am a member of African Views, which is how I know of Medical Mondays. And I'm also a proud daughter of Trinidad and Tobago, with an American accent, because I have lived in the United States for the majority of my life, and I am also an American citizen. And you've been talking primarily about language, and the reason I wanted to participate this evening is because it was framed in the mental, I thought there would be some discussion around mental challenges, mental health, I'm sorry. But maybe you'll get there. But for the most part, you've been speaking about language so far. And so I just want to put in my 2 cents, because the first brother that spoke, pardon me, I don't recall his name, but the second brother, I'm sorry, he referenced languages from Jamaica and other the countries in Africa, and no one not really knowing their language, or having the possibility of losing their language when they migrate to the United States. So I just want to make the point that as a person who was born and raised in Trinidad and Tobago, the one language that we have always had, of course, the dominant language is English, because we were colonized by the British, but we've always had dialects, right? So just like other parts of the world, we have dialects, and so we still speak our dialects. And we also have something we call patois, which is different from the patois that you hear in Jamaica. Our patois is English, and it's Creole, actually. It's English and French combined. And so even while I was growing up, my grandparents spoke patois, but they would speak it so that I, as a child, would not understand what they were saying. It was never taught to me. I don't particularly get hung up on the languages per se. I am more focused on the way we are as people. And so having migrated to the United States as a teenager right after high school, and really growing up in the United States culture, I never took on the cloak of American culture. While I am very familiar with it, I know I love R&B, it never replaced soca for me, or calypso, or steel pan, and I learned to dance African dance in Trinidad and Tobago. I danced with Olatunji in New York when I lived in New York for a bit. So I don't think, I think what we pass on to our children and grandchildren, hopefully, is how we live as people, what we respect in our lives. And if we respect the culture that we have, irrespective of where we land, what we grow with, if we see value in that, then we sustain it. So how did I sustain my culture from Trinidad and Tobago, living in the United States? It's through my honesty, it's through my integrity, it's through how I commune with my neighbors, because that's what I was taught growing up as a child. It's through the food that I cook, that I share with my children, that I show my children how to cook themselves. It's through the music, it's through dance, it's through art. It's not only language. And what I want to also say, and I'll end on this note, is that we in the diaspora are constantly told that we're not African because we're not born on the African continent. Even though we look just like any other African that's walking the street, we are told that we're not African. We are made to feel inferior because we happen to be born in another part of the world. That is what we need to work on. That is what would bring unity for us. When we all start recognizing, respecting, and valuing each other, irrespective of the language that we're speaking, but what we look like, how we commune with each other, when we start doing that, then we will see our children doing that and our grandchildren doing that. And that is the legacy that we ought to be trying to put forward, leave for our children. That's my contribution tonight's discussion. I'm really happy that I'm here. I'm looking forward to others' contributions. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Well, I just want to say before I call on Pastor Onigbinde that the title tonight, you actually said it also, part of it is arts, music, food, Black culture, and as it relates to Black health. We've been discussing depression, suicide, and racial disparities, really mental health. And this is the 12th episode. So under mental health, we've been discussing different topics. We've discussed dementia, we've discussed drug addiction, different sexualities, homosexuality, different topics under this mental health discussion. And, just talking about things that cause depression, suicide, and racial disparities. And if you look at it, we want to look at our music, our arts, our food, because we see that those are areas where we are actually doing very well. but some of us still haven't gotten it, that this is something that we need to be proud of. And that's where language came in, that our language is part of, our culture. We shouldn't lose it, and, I don't know if that helps at all to elaborate a little bit on some things that you might have missed in the last 11 episodes. This is the 12th week. And welcome. I can dialogue with you more out of the forum in order to just give other people some time to comment. So, Pastor Onigbinde, you have the floor, sir.
Well, thank you, Dr. I heard you say something about so I can defend something. I really, well, I really appreciate the contribution by, Miss Tinu Akishola, and I don't see it as any attack on my views or anything. I have something to say actually, but I want to yield the floor to these two other hands, because look, we want to hear other people talk too. So,
okay. I'll revert back to you.
Yes, I want to hear the floor to them. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for being so considerate. I was thinking of the fact that you have to go to service also at some point, was why. So, Sister Toyin Lawal, you have the floor. Sister Toyin Lawal, can you unmute? Okay.
Sorry about that. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening. And as they say in Yoruba, and in Igbo, kedun one name. I trust you all doing well. And in Hausa,
in Akwana,
no, not the Nakwana, Yayade.
Yayade.
Yes.
No.
Now go the Allah. And then if it's in Urobo, it is what is it in Urobo? Migwo Brendo. Omagare Odori Gaga. Here's what I'm trying to say here. It is such a wonderful platform, and I have to give God the praise for your life, Dr. O. And I can also refer to you as Dr. Sek, because you and I have the same first name. And mine also is Oluwatoyin, but I go by Toyin.
Just a minute.
Please go ahead. Somebody interrupted. That was in. Please go ahead.
Okay. So as I was saying earlier, I just want to thank you for this great platform that you have initiated. Dr. Busola George was actually the one that gave the reference to me to come on this board here. And I did a long time ago, but because of my work schedule, I haven't been constant on me attending this meeting. But I'm glad that I chime in today, because this has been such a wonderful discussion. The only thing that I want to add on to this is I heard one of the great speakers that you have on here tonight mention something about the multi-language, and that's the reason why I try to greet everybody in the language that I understand within our culture in Nigeria. I can speak foreign language too, because I think language is very powerful. Go to any foreign place. If you can speak a word in their language, you have captivated their attention, and they're ready to speak or interact with you, even if it's just one word to say hello in their language. That means you are relating to them and you're letting them know that you are part of them and you respect their culture and who they are as a people. I was born in the 50s. So in my home, you cannot speak English. You cannot speak English. My father would tell you that because his mother lives in the house and she doesn't speak English, we're not allowed to speak English because the only language she understands is Yoruba. Now, my mother, on the other hand, is from Benin, Edo. And my grandmother When she comes to visit, we have two grandmothers in the house now. My mother would say, you cannot speak just Yoruba, you have to speak Edo language as well. So to tell you that, I never lived in Benin a day in my life, but I speak Edo like I lived in Benin. So I can speak Yoruba very well. Timba so Yoruba, and when you tell him, Oyinbo, they be tough mama, Benin. Edo, it was a Yoruba. It was English. You see, I can flip from one to one. And this is because this was initiated in our heart that we have to speak that language. There was a time my older sister asked my father and said, why are you making us do this? And my father would say, because if it wasn't for your grandmother, you wouldn't have the good life you have right now. The least you can do is to make sure that she's part of every conversation in this house. The end. And today, I am so grateful for that talent. When it was time for me to choose which language was I going to, you know, when you get to Form 3 in Nigeria, you have to choose the way you want to go, whether it's commercial or you want to go to science. I don't know what they do there right now. And then you have to choose the language you will learn or that you will sit for school cert. I was going to do Yoruba. My father said, what are you doing Yoruba? You already know Yoruba, you can write. Go do French. And that is how French was introduced to me. So, je veux parler français au petit maintenant, because I don't have somebody to speak that with every day. So it's not as fluent as it used to be when we used to go to excursions back then in Cotonou or Togo from the school. These are some of those things that, you know, even though our parents went to school overseas, they came back home, they didn't bring the overseas with them to raise their children. Back in those days, to those of us that were born in the 50s, I still instill the same in my case. At least with the first one, I was successful. But the last two, life got too busy that I didn't have time to really say, okay, let me speak this Yoruba to them. Because by the time I speak Yoruba, I'm getting late to get to work or whatever. Let me speak the language they understand so they can do what I ask them to do so everybody can go on their merry way. And that was how we lost it with those other two. However, when it comes to cooking Nigerian cuisine, in my household, if you are not in the kitchen while I'm cooking, you are not going to eat from that food. I don't care what it is that I'm cooking. You have to be there. And every single one of them, when they reach the age where they can see the stove, they are in the kitchen while I'm cooking. Every single one of them can cook. And they can cook a goosey soup, they can cook a pho, they can cook ogbono, they can cook okra that is cooked together. Every single one of them does. And they can still cook the American cuisine as well. They love to cook. These are the kind of things that if we make it a rule in the house, these kids will adapt to whatever it is that we introduce to them. And I'm so thankful for the speaker that says something about the fact that the languages that we expose our kids to, it's not going to confuse them. It's never going to confuse them. Even at work, there are times if they say something that I really can't make sense of, I'll be like, what to do? And they know that when I say something in a different language, you know, okay, what's going on with Toyin now? I am not ashamed of it. The other thing also, talking about building self-esteem. I remember growing up in the house with grandparents where when you go in the morning and you kneel down to say, good morning, ma, they will go and start praising your ancestors. Omo lagbaja, omo adaba, ara oke onipe, omo arugbo olu, omo akoko, omo akoko bara, oshigibeke, omo owo ile ko je abebi to ko ara arawa. They go back to let you know who you are. And those things build you up. It gives you the self-esteem that you cannot even pay any psychologist, and I hope there's no psychiatrist on this forum to give to you. It's from the time, and I do that with my grandkids now. I give them the oriki that was said to me, even though that it's not their father's oriki, but they have my DNA that comes from my father in them as well as their grandparents. I will do that for them. And when I'm bathing them, I sing songs for them. When my kids were in elementary school, during the time that they have their social activities going on, I go to their school to tell them folk story. I sing to Nwa Tokere, I teach them that song, Joe, me, Joe, I want no Jonja. I will say it in English and then explain it to them in Yoruba, the song that I'm singing. This is something that we all can embrace going forward. It's not too late. Just like you said earlier, Dr. O, you said that now you're doing most of these things with your grandkids. That's the beauty of being a grandparent, because most of what I inherited were from my grandparents too, because they lived in the house with us. We don't have that luxury right now. I don't live with my grandkids, but when I do go to visit or they do come to visit, we should expose them to this thing. The last thing that I want to talk about is the family tree. How do we let these kids know their ancestors? The ancestral.com will do some, but there's nothing like the authentic one. One of the greater things that my uncle could have done, my father's younger brother could have done before he passed away, was to give us the family tree diagram. It's on this big sheet, like, like almost like the construction paper that architects use to draw diagrams of the house that they're about to build. And that started from the very first person all the way down to my father. And from my father, I took it and I added my siblings and myself. And right under myself, I added my kids. And I make a copy for my kids to say, here, you have this. When you start having your family, you make sure that you follow the path. This is very good. If anyone still have anyone that is old enough to be able to give them that information, I think it would be wonderful for everyone to get that, so that we have something authentic to give to our children that they can now pass on to their children, and that will not be lost in the process. Once again, thank you very much. And thank you, Pastor, for allowing us to have something to say before you come on again. God bless you, sir, and continue to enrich you. Thank you.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you for keeping the culture going. That's what we're talking about. That, we need to do this in our households. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, you make me so proud. The rest of us need to emulate. God bless you. So guess who is here? Our new doctor on the block, Pastor Dr. Fawole. So go ahead. I'm going to yield the floor to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. O. I've been listening all along, although I was at a program, so I just step out now. And I really thank God for your life and the lives of everyone who have spoken. I think we're all, some of the things that I noted down have been mentioned, so I will not repeat. So some of the things that I just want to add to it is that we're talking about culture. So when we think about it in terms of education, we know that part of the function of education is actually to teach our kids to understand self, to know themselves, to understand the environment, and to know their community. And we've talked a lot about the importance of our children. Forgive me, people who didn't know, I'm from education, so I work with students, little kids, middle school, high school. So that's always in my head. So, so we know that every child needs to have a sense of belonging. And if most of our kids, if we are not teaching them our culture, then that's the time they actually confuse. Because we're speaking to them at home, whether we like it or not, we are who we are. And whether we realize it or not, we bring ourselves in. I mean, that's just who we are. I grew up in Nigeria. There are certain things that is in me that I cannot change just because I'm from Nigeria. And my children will see that, whether I like it or not. So if I'm not educating them in that, and then they go to school and they're hearing, they're learning other culture, they're hearing from other culture, of course, that's the time that they are confused. So it's important for us to actually teach them. And how do we teach them? Most of them, we might not have time to sit down to say, hey, look at this and look at that. Thank God for grandparents. that will be able to do that for us. Some parents might not have that time, but the way that we present our culture, that we present where we come from, has a lot to do with it. Some of us Nigerians, we talk bad about our country. We talk bad about our culture. Nigerian, what am I going to go and do there? It's a messed up country. It's this and that and that and that. That register in the head of our kids. But if we embrace who we are ourselves, we embrace our culture, then it will spill to our children. Then they can even ask questions. They can begin to ask questions. Mom, why do you do this the way you do it? Dad, why do you say what you just said? And then that will open a line of communication for us. So one of the ways that I've encouraged parents is to really get involved, especially when we have little children that are going to school, elementary school, middle school. Children can be very cruel. And for us as African parents, we have to show up. I know that a lot of time we don't have time. We are very busy. If they don't do well, we're going to beat them. But in this culture, we really cannot wait for that. We have to get involved. We have to go to parent meeting, go to PTO in our Ankara to show that, yes, we are who we are and we are proud to be. Then that we encourage our children, and that we also give them confidence that they need to learn. So I'm saying our children because I believe that's where we start. That's, our family unit, that's where that begins. And our children will be able, they will be able to preserve this culture that we're talking about. If we want to preserve this culture, it actually depends on me and on you. It is on all of us, the grown-ups. We are the one who is responsible to ensure that this culture is preserved. And whether we like it or not, we gave them Nigerian names. We gave them, our, individual countries' names. So their name already tells them that they are from somewhere rather than America, even before they speak. When they look at their roster, they already see Ade Lanwa, they already saw Ade Kunle, okay, Ola Oluwa, they already see all that. And that says a lot to those who are reading it. So it is important that we don't just give them that name, but we actually stand with them. Stand with them to help them to understand what that name is, what that culture stands for, so that we can boost their confidence. And we talk about social and emotional. We talk about, all these mental health. This can lead to a lot of mental health problems if we are not, because kids can be very cruel. I was speaking to a child today. Actually, she's an 8th grader, and she came to me and said, "Oh, Miss Fawole, 8th grade now. Now I'm leaving, but I actually feel like I don't want to leave. Whereas in 4th grade, I don't want to be here because I felt like everybody hated me until you will come to our class and you will speak, because I had to make it my business, to start educating our teachers. Like, okay, when you see this culture, we have to embrace it. We have to find what it is. We have to encourage these children. So for host parents, especially those of us from, Africa, we are the ones that brought our kids here. We're the ones that have to make sure that we give our students what they need, what our children need, to be able to scale successfully in the world that we put them in, because we're the one who put them in this world. So we have to. I know that God sent them, but we decided to come to America to raise them here. So it's important that we give them the tools that they need to do that. I want to share one embarrassing moment to me, and it's my fault. This is something that happened to me. And believe it or not, I was very embarrassed. I'm not proud of what I'm about to tell you. So my dad passed away some years ago, and we went to Nigeria, for the funeral and burial and all that. And I stood in front of the church, because I wanted to, say something. Amazingly, I could not converse in Yoruba. I found myself moving from Yoruba to English, and I would come back and I will move back to Yoruba, move back to English. I was very, very embarrassed because my plan is to speak Yoruba throughout. But I surprised myself that I could not converse in Yoruba for a very long time without switching to English. And that day, I told myself, Mayowa, you need to do better. You need to do better. And why? I asked myself, why did that happen to me? It's probably because I've not been speaking the language. And I grew up in Nigeria. But because I've not been using that language, I guess I lost it. I understand it, I can speak it, but to speak it fluently for some time, maybe for like 10 minutes, I was very, very embarrassed that I couldn't do it. And because of that, it became something that I was very conscious of. Like, okay, now I have to begin to speak that language. I have to speak Yoruba, whether I like it or not, everywhere that is possible for me to speak the language. So I'm saying this to tell us that even for us as parents, one of the ways for us to embrace this language is to speak it. One of the ways for us to embrace it is to, let's what we love, we preserve. We preserve. What we love, we cherish. We talk about food. We talk about our clothing. When we look at Amazon right now, you can find Nigerian clothes to buy on Amazon. And you see African American, purchasing the clothes are where they love it. So for us, the ones that, and I always say, like I said to the girl today, I give thanks to God for those people who are before us that have embraced this and that make it easier for some of us, make it easier for somebody like me to be able to stand up and say, oh, Nigeria is a country that, that has come to stay, that is strong, that is viable, that must be respected, that is important. Because some people have paved the way. And we also have to ensure that we continue to make that happen for our children and our grandchildren. So those of us that had the opportunity, you have young children in school right now, please get involved. Get involved in the PTO, because that is the way to say somebody loves this child. He or she might not speak the way you're speaking, but yes, somebody cares. This is somebody's best. This is my best child. So, and you are going to listen to him or her. But if we don't show up, then they're going to treat them like, okay, you're nobody. And what happens to our kids? That's when the mental issue comes, because then they don't feel that they belong in that community. They cannot speak. Some of the teachers cannot say their name correctly. And if we don't teach our kids, like, okay, if they say your name wrongly, correct them and tell them the right way to say it. Take pride in your name. Take pride in who you are. Those are some of the things that I believe that we need to begin to do, or even educate people around us to do it, to make life easier for our children, for them to be able to fulfill and attain their potential. I know that Almighty God created it and He brought us here for a reason, for a purpose. But there are some things that God has given us the wisdom to be able to do, and this is part of them. So I want to encourage all of us here today. We talk about education, Dr. O mentioned it. It's part of something that I wrote down here that we need to, but more importantly, we also, first of all, have to embrace it. We have to embrace it, the wholeness of it, including our food. Yes, our food has a lot of carbohydrates, but we can pick and choose, and we can see some of our men, especially, they want their swallow every day. But then we're here, we know that the life that we live in Nigeria is not the same one. Because right here in Nigeria, we probably do not drive cars to everywhere that we go. But in America, we do. So those are some of the differences that we have to identify and now find a way to balance it for us, to balance it. I pray that God help us. Thank you for the privilege. I know I talked a lot.
Oh, no, thank you so very much. God bless you. Thank you. I appreciate you. And thank you for participating on the panel week after week. Much appreciated. Thanks for that contribution. So I'm going to call on Pastor Onigbinde. Pastor Onigbinde, now your comment.
Well, I was going to say, so much has been said, but I heard specific sound bites that are really significant, and they have to inform some of the things that we have come to listen to tonight. Something about education. You know, we're talking about culture, and so many times people have used that word to educate. We need education. And that is probably one way of, our recognition that, even when we was talking about our culture, we don't even, in identifying ourselves with the culture, we don't have to accept this wholesale delivery that doesn't make us to, put the baggage of culture down and then open it and then identify and decipher and, separate the wheat from the chaff. And because that is, when we listen to people tonight, it's easy for us to know that something that we identify with is that we don't deny who we are. We are a people of culture. We know where we came from. But I think it will be wrong for us not to understand, part and pieces of our culture that we need to understand, and some of the part of our culture that we need to do something about and change. Culture, the language, was people have spoken about language, really far and wide tonight, and I think is really important. It's one element of our culture that I can speak Yoruba, and I won't tell you that it's something that it's just something that I want to do. I mean, I actually believe that is one way of proving that this is who I am. If I'm a Yoruba man and I can speak Yoruba, how do I prove that I'm a Yoruba man? So a language is one way of proving who you are, which is why it's really important. People have spoken about, the importance of language. But again, I come back to my point about, we're not attacking our culture. We're not throwing away our culture. But it's really important for us to know that our culture is like a dirty baby. You wash it, but you don't throw away the baby and the dirty water. You throw away the dirty water. You make the baby clean. It's still your baby. Something about why we need to educate ourselves and educate our children about culture, so that we can decipher and differentiate what is the good and the bad, the beautiful and the bane, is that some of the time people don't even understand why they are accepting this particular culture. Somebody was mentioning something about effeminizing male because they braid their hair. Here in America, because people are enamored with culture, and sometimes they just see things, imbibe it. They won't wait to say, "Hey, what is the reason for this? Why do you do this? What is this from? What informs this?" And when you don't wait to ask questions about what you see that enamored you, you actually will imbibe it without knowing, and you end up, showing it, and then it makes you to be depicted probably in a way that you don't want to. For instance, talking about braiding of hair, I'm not sure whether it's true or whether it's true or false. There was a magician in Nigeria from a southern part of Nigeria who is from a place where they worship Oya. And he, I think it's his own trademark. He braided his hair I know Nigerians will know if I mention his name, 27/7. And when he came to America, came to New York, every male African, every African American just, wow, look at, the braided hair with the beads and all that. And I, when they saw that, they began to do it. And look, if you do that in Nigeria, if a man braids his hair in Nigeria, they will see you as an Oya worshiper or something like that. It's not something like, you see it all over the place here. A Nigerian male would not do that without, I don't think that people will not take him for the kind of people that would do that. So in other words, we can be enamored with culture and we don't understand culture. I mean, you think about the Arabs, when they cover their face and do the turban, we think it's religious, but they know when there's a sandstorm, they will go blind. So, when you now say, oh, I like the turban, and you put on the turban, if you ask them, they say, well, if you don't have sandstorm, why do you need that? I mean, you come from Nigeria, you don't want to wear, pants, and you say, well, Nigerian women don't wear pants. Well, women in America wear pants. You know why? Because when it is winter, they need to be bundled up. So, in other words, all these elements, all these pieces, all these bits and pieces of culture, they actually, we get to know what they stand for with education. But all of that to say, I want to close myself. I'm not closing because I know that all of this is still subject to Dr. Ho and all our leaders here. But I want to say something from what the Word of God says about culture. And this is something to leave in our mind even tonight. And it is in Jeremiah chapter 10. For us to understand, not all the bits and pieces of culture are imbibable. There are some of the part of it that we need to eschew. And here in Jeremiah chapter 10, it says, hear the word which the Lord speaks to you, O house of Israel. Thus says the Lord, do not learn the way of the Gentiles. Do not be dismayed at the signs of heaven. For the Gentiles are dismayed at them. For the customs of the peoples are futile. For one cuts a tree from the forest. The work of the hands of the workman with an axe. They decorate it with silver and gold, and then they fasten it with nails and hammers, so that it will not topple. Now, that is identify one culture, which is idolatry. And God is saying, don't invite that. In other words, everything else will be okay. Everything else will be good. Not everything else is probably bad, but this particular part, don't invite. And I think that is something that we need to open our eyes to when we also think in a broad sense about culture. And then all of that to say that when you're not thinking about culture in a universal sense or anything else, you need to bring your mind to bear on it. And then you need to now think, and you need to now say, okay, now in choosing this or choosing that, all the good parts, because the good parts are what is good, no matter what, whether it's being handed down or it's being received by somebody. And so, again, Philippians chapter 4 verse 8 comes to mind because it's a finally, right? Whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are good, are of good report. If there's any virtue, and if there's anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things. And I think it also applies to even these specific topic about the culture that we have talked about tonight. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you so much, sir. Much appreciated. We needed that perspective to complete this, really. But Dr. Ajagbe, you've been silent tonight. Can you unmute, please? And while you're muting, I just want to mention that in the chat box, one of our brothers wrote that he had written an app. And the app is published, it's I'm trying to put it together, a mobile app available on Google Play and Apple stores. The first app is called African American Legacy app. And the second app is called Nigeria Today app. These apps cover Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo, and Swahili. Uses video tutorials, textbooks, radio blogs, and events online. So those are apps that, you know, our children, grandchildren can utilize to learn our language.
Doctor,
please.
It's your Aburo.
Oh, it's Dr. Daniel.
Yeah, it's me.
Thank you so much. Yes, I know about your apps. I did know that. So please check it out and let's utilize it. That's a great way to teach our children, grandchildren, and whoever likes to learn these languages, to learn them. Dr. Jagbe, over to you, sir.
Well, thank you, everyone. I know this topic is inexhaustible. We can't truly exhaust it. There's still many dimensions to everything that has been said. We have to understand some things, that we are here by design of the colonial masters. The way it was designed was to undermine everything that we had in preference to their own culture, so that once we were separated from what we counted as being valuable in the past for centuries, then we were lost, basically. I mean, we were trying to find ourselves. We are trying to re-find ourselves as we are dialoguing right now. Let's see from our educational system where we grew up in Nigeria. You went to primary school, you went to high school, and everywhere you went, you were punished for speaking your language. We were told no speaking in vernacular. You were told if you spoke in vernacular, you'll be punished. You were never rewarded for understanding your own language. You were punished. Punishment was a terrible negative reinforcement. Many of us that were punished for speaking in our language, eventually when we managed not to speak our language anymore, it was good riddance of bad rubbish. But I didn't want to say that as a generalization, but I can tell you that a large segment of those of us who are on this platform dialoguing right now experience that. If you went to school, a high school in Nigeria or somewhere in West Africa, I'm sure you've been exposed to that punishment. In fact, the first punishment I had was I had to write an imposition 1,000 times. I will not speak vernacular again for 1,000 times. When the time that you're supposed to be sleeping, you are being punished to go and write an imposition. That was ingrained in my own mind. It was ingrained in me very, very strongly that it was bad to speak my language. It was not just bad, it was punishable. The same thing with every other thing that we held, our forefathers or our fathers held dearly to. We were told that they were bad, they were evil, to the point where if you did it, in fact, there were laws that were made to be in place to make sure that if you violated those laws, you were in big trouble. If you didn't lose your life, you would lose something very dear to you. So some of these things were the foundations that put us where we are right now. Yes, we are beginning to have an awareness, a rebirth, if you want to call it, of what we think was really meaningful to us. We're trying to compare what we have with what everybody else has in the world. Nobody said Africa was the worst, but when the colonial master wanted to gain access and to gain power over that culture, I mean, they had to make it inferior. They had to make it totally evil and reprehensible, to the point where if you do anything, there were many people that were killed just for trying to be themselves in the culture that they grew up in. They didn't want to become assimilated, they were beheaded. They were seen as being opposition to the powers that be. These are the things that form the foundation of where we are right now. I mean, it's not because our forefathers didn't like to teach us what it was. We had oral tradition. Every culture, I mean, every family had a family historian. Every group of people, a township or a village had a village a historian that have catalogs of every single person in their community. And when you went to the palace of any Oba, if they were still doing it, you can get the chronological historical facts about your family from the Oba's palace. Depending on what city or town where you come from, I know in Ogbomoso, there is the person, the historian, the town historian who has custody of everything, but they were all oral. Now, if it was not passed down to somebody who has very good retentive memory, you're going to lose a whole lot of information because they were not written down. Now, maybe some people are beginning to write it down, maybe not. But what I'm trying to say to us is this. We didn't get to where we are right now by accident. It was a calculated attempt to totally remove memories of who we are, that we may now begin to see ourselves in the image of whoever is the master. And the master became, I mean, whatever the color they want to call them, but it's just the same the way it was. Everything is cascading down to where we are right now. We are saying no more. That is why we are saying, let's educate ourselves. Let's learn more about this. But we cannot shy away from what the damages have been done. Now, it's very difficult to try to maintain a balance and not have some strong emotions. But if you have not learned so much about your history, you're not going to be able to have that kind of emotion to say, look, I really want to see a change in everything. Right now, food revolution, culinary revolution is coming. I can say that definitely that there is no culture that is static. Regardless of how we want to paint it, everything is evolving. It's changing. The so-called local thing, if you went back to your village, things have changed since 20 years ago. It's no longer the same thing. If you go to Ogbomoso, for instance, the part of the culinary thing that people knew Ogbomoso for were three things: amala and gbegiri with ewedu. That was a standard meal for Ogbomoso man. I mean, Ogbomoso people. And after amala and gbegiri, it is pap, ogi. That is their dessert. Ogbomoso people had dessert. Their dessert was akamu or ogi or pap or whatever. For centuries, that is the way they've been eating their meals. But that's changed. You don't see that anymore. Another thing in Ogbomoso was akara egbe. Akara egbe, there is some way they've made beans to make into some kind of cookie-like stuff that don't get spoiled. It never gets moldy, and you don't keep it in refrigerator. These are some of the things that we have to remember. Those are part of our foundation that were destroyed so much, the point where we see them as not relevant anymore. It's only when we come together like this that we can say, you know what, let's go back, find out what has been good for us. I think every single speaker has said that. We must retrace our steps. We must write our own history. We must find out facts about us and hold on to which ones that are really good. We know culture will continue to evolve. We cannot keep it stagnant. Because as new people come, they will take some pieces from different culture and amalgamate them and create new culture. And regardless of how you want to put it, they will still, they make Christian it this whichever way. I mean, Nigerian culture, African culture, Yoruba culture, Igbo culture, but the bottom line is still this. We must know who we are first and accept ourselves for who we are. I raised it earlier before. If Africans begin to disrespect themselves by the fact that they do not accept who they are, we see the so-called bleaching revolution has hit Africa so by storm. Everybody is turning to be Chinese, white Nigerians. I mean, you see that they were born so black and then now they are white persons. Well, they don't like themselves. How are you going to talk about that? A mother that changed from a black person to a white woman to tell the child that I have self-esteem. What kind of self-esteem is this one? To tell them you must be proud to be an African. No, you already tell them by your action, you are not happy to be a black person. You want to be a white person, and you have done everything to become white person. I'm not going to knock anybody about their hairstyle or whatever, but the bottom line is this. If we truly say we love what we have, that is the way we can make presentations of what we have. I am not ashamed of putting these caps. I've invested in different designs of caps that are that represent African mindset to complement anything that I'm wearing. And I don't care what anybody says, but it is my own statement of how I appreciate who I am. I don't have to change everything about myself, but I have to see what part of the culture that I can truly carry forward. And one of them is in fashion. One of them, and another thing is in food. Language, we want to try and keep them as long as possible, but it has to be based on interest of those people coming behind us. If they're not interested, no matter how much we paint it, if they're not interested, we can't force them. Because once they become adults, it's over. But the thing that challenges me about that is this. There are white people who learned Yoruba, who learned Igbo very fluently. They speak them joyfully. I was at a conference, a oral pathology conference in Chicago about 10 years ago. A white man came right behind me. He saw the way I dressed and he spoke to me in Yoruba, fluent Yoruba. And I was shocked. Then he said to me, don't be shocked, dude. You know, I lived in Lagos. I said, you lived in Lagos? I said, yes. He said, I lived in Lagos. Oh my gosh, I was so shocked. And we spoke in Yoruba for at least about 5 to 10 minutes. So if those people have interest in it, our children eventually will develop interest by the time they see our own example, that we are showing more interest in what belongs to us. We can't legislate it. Nobody can legislate it. In the past, they used to do lingua franca. Oh, we must find a lingua franca. Those are propagandas that were on to manipulate us, to indoctrinate us, and to brainwash us into believing that, you know, we have to have a different language than the one that we were born with in order for us to communicate. In the United Nations, if you speak any other language other than English, there is interpreter. So we should be proud of what we have, but unless we show that interest, it's going to go away, like everybody has said. If we're losing about 25 languages every year to extinction, well, it's a matter of time. Thank you, Dr. O. You have shown a great strength by being awake and alert at this time of the day. I mean, you are just incredible. I know your day has been very busy, but it's very imperative that you be part of this discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. So much appreciate you. Yes, we were all in school, and I was assistant senior prefect in one school, assistant senior prefect in another, and had to enforce
no vernacular speaking. However, you know that we have one common language in Nigeria, for instance. I'm using Nigeria as an example, and that's English. And I believe that is why in school we were mandated to speak English. I mean, just, I don't want you to unmute Dr. Jagu because this is a dialogue. And I'm not saying it because I was a prefect. I took Yoruba as a language up to school start level. So I learned Yoruba that way. I still believe that, teaching our children from home is what is important. But the reason why we do English in school and it's mandated is because that's the language that ties us together. A Yoruba person usually does not speak Igbo, or, Hausa person speak Yoruba or vice versa. And so teaching at home is still important. Dr. Daniel's app is a great thing, I think, for us to use as tools. For instance, and we need to develop those kinds of tools in other languages, other African languages too, to assist. Just playing the advocate.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So I also want to say that I was at Luz earlier, now it's yesterday here, and I have to share this. The place was amazing. Equipments were all working. They have their own generated electricity, apart from anywhere else in Lagos. And everywhere was crispy clean. We touched the whole hospital with the assistant CMD, and everywhere was like US standard. It was beautiful. So we need to change and stop knocking things at home that, things are bad. Dr. Jagwe is fantastic. He goes to Nigeria a lot and comes back and just raves about it. He told us about the new railroad from Ibadan to Lagos. I've not seen that. I don't know if I'm going to be on that one. But we need to start looking at things that we're doing positively and things that need to improve. If we can assist to improve it, We need to be contributors instead of putting, things that people are doing at home down. These doctors, this is the medical aspect that I'm talking about. These doctors are phenomenal doctors. We know the ability of our doctors back home. They are top-notch doctors. In some parts, they just don't have the equipment that are needed. But they've read it. Give it to them when they come to the US. Within days, they learn them hands-on because they've studied, they've read them. But now, my experience at Luz is just an eye-opener. I have to say that to encourage us all, please, let's help where we can, if we can, and so that we can build our countries back up again if they need to be built in some areas, or just helping building and making it better. So before we conclude, we're getting close to that. We need to conclude in a few minutes. I just want to acknowledge that Papa, Brother Mike Oye, Dr. Mike Oye is here, and I wanted him to chip into this conversation. Kindly unmute, sir, and welcome, sir.
Well, good evening, everybody.
Good evening, sir.
This has been an exciting moment. I have enjoyed every bit of it, and I want to thank God for all who have contributed. Dr. O, thank you for making this forum possible. Well, I have carried my culture to America. My Ghanaian culture, as you can see from my intonation, my Nigerian culture, and some good aspects of African culture that I have learned from the 26 African countries I have visited. We need to, sift through things, take what is good and positive, add it to our character and our nature, our eating habits, everything we do, so that we may be able to fit into every society where we go. Culture is a life pattern, it's a lifestyle, and it's dynamic. It has to improve every day. So from everywhere we go, we must learn something positive and be thankful to God for it. But there's no culture that is better than the Christian culture. The Bible teaches us a culture that is eternal, and that culture comes from Christ. I have no apologies for that. We need to learn from the Word of God the true lasting culture. And it's a culture of purity of life. It's a culture of love. One thing I want us to know about Africa generally, about our culture, is that our culture cushions, it's like a cushion on which a person falls and does not break his bones. We support one another. However poor we are, we support one another. We are hospitable. We need to note that. We are kind. We live as a society. We don't live individualistic lives. That's a very important thing. Coming to music, I'm a musician and I love music in every way. I don't know whether many of us know that our tone of singing and composing all over Africa is special. The European and American tone is different. We use a few tones. Do, re, mi, fa, so, that's all. And we go within that range. Do, re, mi, fa, so, do, re, mi, fa, so. And the songs composed through that are soronic, edifying. They touch the emotions. So we have brought something to the whole world, which is very good. And people spoke about, musicians here inculcating the African culture in music. That is very good. And do you know it has a healing effect on the body? Music has a healing effect on the body, the brain, and everything. There are some local songs that will, make a person cry out of, wonderful emotions. And when you cry, you are healing yourself in some ways. There are others that make us nostalgic. We remember wonderful things in our lives. That also heals. I don't want to say more because we have said so many things across the line this night. And I'm happy that we are really coming back home and thinking positively on how to blend things together. And another culture I have brought here is about our health directly. I'm a herbalist. And I use natural things. Part of our culture is to avoid too many chemical things that are foreign to the body. Let's go back to nature and get something good from nature and be thankful for God. Africa is so rich in using herbs and natural things for health. Do you know that our visitation alone, even visitation to the sick, heals? making our grandmothers and grandfathers live with us prolongs their lives and makes them to impact the younger generation. It is holistic. Our meals are the best in the world. Now, through research, it has been known that people from that small country called Gambia have the best soups in the world. A Gambian can cook one soup with about 8 or 9 different vegetables. And the combination of the vegetables is healing to every part of the body. You can scarcely find a fat person in Gambia. They are all slim, strong, and it's because of the food they eat. They are not rich at all. They are not rich, but they eat scientifically rich food. The only carbohydrate they eat is rice. That's all they have. But the rice will be surrounded with wonderful God-given vegetables and fish. That makes them strong. We should not come here and be eating the barbecues and all the part of the rubbish here. We should teach our children even to grow, to know what is good, quality food. Because you are what you eat. You are what you drink. Let's appreciate our culture and bless God for it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. God bless you, sir.
Amen.
Well, I think we got a balance. I think we had an amazing night. Thank you so much for everyone that has, contributed tonight. We have some things in the chat that I don't want to miss. Dr. Craig said, some of us are not blessed to have our grandparents still with us. However, it is never too late for us to begin to document the knowledge as we know it today. If we do not do it, no one else will. And it suggests do it accurately. Then Sister Toyin and Sister Tinu were going off on different foods, just like Baba said. That we have good food, the gbegiri, ewedu, amala, the abula, amala is abula, so delicious. And then the pap and akara, the bean cake, the even akara oshu in Oshu town, Oshu state, fried in coconut oil. That sounds healthy.
I think that was akara oshu.
Akara Oshu. Oh, thank you, sir. In Oshu state.
In Oshu state.
In Oshu state. Thank you, sir. Brother said, it's very sad that we see such things in our circles when, geez, I remembered when he wrote this. That was when, Dr. Jagbu was talking about the English language that is mandated in schools. Yes, some schools that are run by churches pride themselves speaking with British and American accent. We need to empower our future generations to own their IDs. Language is inclusive. Thanks for sharing. Thanks, brother. Thank you so much for the fabulous contribution. Dr. Okpeyemi also says the impact of other language loss because of English language could be huge, especially for the Yorubas. It can lead to loss of identity in the future and loss of the Yoruba land and heritage. What is said here is deep because Yoruba language is the only language that we know that people will chant generational stories, I'll call them. They called oriki in Yoruba language. And the head, your head starts swelling. I don't know how to interpret that in English. It's a physiological reaction that science have not been able to explain, because somebody is just speaking words and they're talking about your generations, ancestors, and you're experiencing a physiological change, in your brain. Sure. Yoruba language is the only one that has that. The British says is the richest language in the world. Why aren't we proud of it? We've talked about arts, about food, about music tonight. And when I say arts, I'm talking even about clothing, fashion and stuff like that. We've talked about that. We are a beautiful people. Our Caucasian, Asian, and all other races are also beautiful people. But some embrace their culture more than others. I believe the Asians do that more so than us. And my encouragement to us tonight is that we should embrace ours too. We need to do better. We need to change this. We must not lose the beauty that the Lord has granted us. So, till we meet next week, I'm going to say good night, and may the Lord keep us and bring us back safely again next week for another session. We will be having Dr. Mayowa come talk to us about something to do with reproduction and, things of the like that. After that, we're going to bring, if you remember, we had Dr. Sandu, and she gave a free session to some of us on this platform, where she taught plant-based diet, healthy living, and stuff like that. We're going to bring these people back so that they can share what they learned with us. We're talking about food, eating right, and so we can learn some things about things that are important that we need to add to our diet or change in our diet for better living and for better health. So Professor Baba just wrote something. Should your children speak the language, they may be more likely to imitate it and be proud of it. Professor Baba, kindly explain what you just wrote there. Not explain, but can you phrase it? Because
actually, I meant to say that should your children hear you speak your language, you in the family, the husband and wife, and basically the parents are speaking the language, and they are more likely, they will see that sense of pride, have a language. But if you are just speaking English to them and you expect them to learn, or only one family parent, like that, most of the time, if just one parent speaking it, and you guys are not speaking it with each other, then I think they may think, well, it's not important. But so I think it's important that not rather than just speaking to them, you also speak. Both of you should speak also. If people from, like when I see people from your tribe come, rather than just speaking English throughout, try to speak the language. So that's how they become part of the community. Because sometimes it's easier for them to imitate you by listening to you speak than you trying to teach them in a formal way. Like someone said, when you go, you're teaching them, they are grown up. When you are learning language, it's not the same thing like when you hear people speak and you are part of it. So my encouragement is that I think let's speak the language. I've seen people, Nigerian, they are both from the same tribe, but they don't speak the language. Everything is just English, and the kids, and they wonder why the kids cannot speak the language. Well, you are not speaking it yourself. So that's what I meant. And so thank you so much for the opportunity. Again, great forum. Thank you, everybody. Let's be the the guide to the kids. Let's not keep telling them you need to do it, but let's do it first. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And yes, Sister Tinu, you're right. Language is use or lose it.
Exactly.
And with that,
Yeah.
I say good night. See you next week. God bless you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sister Tower.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Doctor.
Bye.
Yeah,
I'll
thank you.
see you on
you.
chat.
Thank
Good
you.
night, Dr. O.
Night.
Good night.
All right.
Good night.
Let's go.